The WPP Group was started just over 20 years ago by Sir Martin Sorrell, who is still running the company today. We are now one of the world's largest marketing communications groups, and we have 100,000 employees, more than 2,000 offices in more than 100 countries. We offer two different types of position for people coming into the organisation. The first is through WPP, and this is the program I run, which is the WPP Marketing Fellowship, where we offer 10 places a year on a program that has graduates spend 3 years, 1 year in each of 3 different operating companies, each year working in a different marketing communications discipline, and possibly on 3 different continents. So somebody might start in London, move to New York, and then move to Shanghai for their 3rd year, working in an advertising agency, a research company, a design agency. We decide on the specific rotations depending on the graduates' individual skills and our requirements. That's the job at WPP. In addition to that, our operating companies often run their own graduate recruitment programs. So in any given year, several hundred people might be taken on.
Well, I'm on the fellowship program, which is in itself a very sort of, for want of a better word, an elite group of people that are specifically selected to work across WPP companies, which is a great advantage and a great sort of thing for us to do, because we can see lots of different aspects of the marketing world, work in lots of different disciplines across different countries. And in terms of making me feel unique, we have a specialist mentor that works for WPP that we wouldn't have had access to if we'd worked for just one of the holding companies or one of the operating companies. And we have specialist training programs, we have forums where we meet some of the leaders of the business and discuss issues relevant to marketing and branding.
I think I chose to come to WPP because throughout university and throughout my whole life I've been very interested in creative, and I've always been a writer and so forth. So I knew that I wanted to use that talent somehow in my job, but WPP was the only training program I found that gave you the variety to do 3 different jobs in 3 different years. It really just seemed like a great way to test out a few things before I'd be forced to settle down with one position, and all the travel it offered was also pretty incredible. Coming from New York, being able to go anywhere I wanted was a really nice part of it.
I'm in the 1st year currently of the WPP Fellowship, which means as I applied in London, you pretty much will start in London. And then depending on your inclinations, the type of discipline you want to do within marketing, you then move on to wherever you want really, depending on the types of advertising, media, PR for example. So next year I'm looking to go out to Shanghai or Hong Kong.
At university I studied modern languages, specifically French and Spanish. One of the main attractions to this career, this job at WPP, is that you can spend each of the 3 years in different countries. So I've actually spent 6 months of this year in Buenos Aires in Argentina. So my Spanish has obviously been put to good use, and I use it daily while I'm in London at the moment as well. Another part of my degree was an ability to analyse texts and to read lots of different views from different people, different critics, and then be able to distill that information and break down through everything and come up with one clear answer, which is what I have to do now. It's a case of original thinking, but also learning from people that have already written on the subject and for people that have worked in the industry for many, many years.
The first piece of advice I'd offer anybody coming into the marketing communications business is to be yourself. Be yourself when you apply, be yourself when you interview, and be yourself as you continue your career. Because if you have to pretend to be something else in order to get a job and keep a job, then it's a recipe for disaster. The other thing I'd say is that you should remember you have to have a life outside of work. The most important thing that we do in the marketing communications business is create connections between people and brands, connections between brands and real life. And you have to be experiencing real life yourself in order to be able to have a relevant opinion about it. And too many hours stuck in an office thinking solely about marketing theory doesn't make you any more interesting or any more useful.
The times I've been surprised by the work have involved mostly levels of responsibility that I wouldn't have expected to be given to me so quickly. Or, for instance, being within 2 days of my arrival here at the London office, I was being sent to Moscow for a few days to cover some meetings there and so forth. And I'd obviously never been to Russia and really expected a couple weeks to kind of get my feet wet here. But instead, the pace of it here is very much just, you're asked to do something, you agree to do it, and the next day you're kind of off doing it, which I think is really challenging, but also very exciting and a great way to learn what you're good at and what you're not.
When somebody's looking for their first job, it's really important that they interview the company as well as the company interviewing them. I've seen a lot of people go into jobs that are not right for them, going into general careers that aren't right for them, with companies that aren't right for them, in roles that aren't right for them, all because other people have told them that it's the right thing to do. They should make their own minds up about that, and they should make sure that the company they go to work for is a good fit for them. You can tell an awful lot by just sitting in the lobby of any company and watching people move through and seeing how they relate to one another, getting a feel for the kind of conversations and body language that exist in the place. You can tell an unhappy company or a company in which you're going to be unhappy very quickly. And I think that more people should spend more time thinking about things like this before they take jobs.
To make the transition between university and business easier, in my opinion, you should spend as much time as you can in a working environment before you go in and pick your career path. So, for example, I spent several weeks in different companies in different roles. I tried some work experience in television, some in magazines, and I think getting that experience, even if it is just for a day or for a week, will help make that transition easier.
We're in the communications business, and when somebody's applying to our business, they've got to show us that they are good communicators. Initially, they have to show us that they're good communicators in writing, and later on, they have to show us that they're good communicators in person as well. Now, I get 1,500 applications a year, and I can guarantee you that at least 500 of those I can throw away straight away because of the lack of attention to detail, the poor English, the poor grammar, the poor spelling. I then get to a point where I've got 1,000 applications on my kitchen table, and I have to find a way to reduce those 1,000 down to 100 for a first interview. And the way that I do that is to find the 100 best storytellers among those applications. We ask a number of questions in our application that force people to think a bit, that force them to solve problems, that force them to tell stories. And the most compelling storytellers and the people with whom I feel I'm having an interesting conversation, albeit on paper, are the ones who I invite for interview. And then when I invite them for interview, I want to see more than that. I want to see that they're even better in person than they are in writing. But I've got to get them from 100 to 30 for a final interview, and then finally to 10 people for a job offer. It's a very difficult process of reducing the numbers. But at the end of it, we're left with wonderful people, people who we like, people who are great storytellers, people who write well, people who speak well, people who light up a room.